Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, y'all, and I can't wait for this show. Ryan Blackburn, Swipa, y'all, we are about to do a Denver Nuggets 2K kind of rebuild since the 2022 season. What would Ryan Blackburn and Swipa have changed about the Nuggets over really the last three off seasons, including this one? And we're going to talk about, are the Nuggets trapped in this past, or can they find a new way forward? Star Wars, A New Hope? We all hope to find it. Y'all know what time it is. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. This is your host, Swipa. This with one of his very best friends in the world, Ryan Blackburn. Hope you're having a stupendous, spectacular day, y'all. This is going to be an amazing episode. And actually, I might say this might end up being my favorite off-season episode of the year so far. But y'all, this is going to be a great one. Make sure you're tuning all the way in from the very start to the end. And today's episode, y'all, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off, y'all, your first purchase. And I can't wait to get started. Ryan Blackburn, brother, how are you feeling today? How's your summer going, man?
Oh man, it's going well. I've been I don't know if you guys are any gamers at all in the comments section here, but been playing this new game called Expedition 33. It's been fantastic. It's just a beautiful game and really, really interesting. Having a lot of fun there, getting outside, getting walking. I'm looking a little tanner. It's hard to, doesn't really come through on the camera because I'm as pale and pasty as ever, but it's definitely been a good summer.
Look, Ryan, first off, I want to say I'm very proud of you. Ryan, you're taking some very active steps and you're doing a lot of things, take care of your own personal health. And, Ryan, I have really felt this summer, as stressful as the year's been for everybody else, especially for Nuggets fans, I think we really have to just make sure we're taking care of ourselves, exercising our brains, exercising our bodies. And by the time the Denver Nuggets get back in season, not only will the Nuggets have a championship team, you're going to have a championship body, and so will you in the comment section.
Hell yeah. I can't wait for it. It's been exciting, been good. It's a slow burn. It's you can't like, you can skip a day or two here or there, but like, it's about the long haul, so very excited for it. And I think the unfortunate reality here for the Nuggets is that they've skipped too many days, man, and it's just been getting behind on their steps a little bit.
Right. All right, Ryan. So we're doing a very fun exercise in which I kind of dropped it on a group chat a little bit ago, but I was like, you know what? Let's actually get into it and kind of talk about this a little bit. So, Ryan, basically the premise of this is, for everybody that's watching here live and after the fact, we are going to rebuild the Denver Nuggets from the 2022, before they won a title, offseason to now. What would Ryan and I have done differently, not over from Calvin Booth and the Nuggets, but what would be do different between each other? Ryan, I'm actually really excited to see how this goes. So where would you like to start? What is your first pathway here?
It's tough because when we were talking about this, I kind of went through it and was like, I'm going to keep most of the moves that he made during the 2022 offseason because I think a lot of them have worked out. Yeah, trading for KCP was a slam dunk. Signing Bruce Brown was a slam dunk. Drafting Christian Brown was a slam dunk. Like, all those moves were great. If there was one move that I think you could argue about, it would be drafting Andrew Nembhard instead of Peyton Watson. That's come up a couple times, but like we've seen what happens with this Indiana squad, with the OKC squad, and how the teams have definitely shifted into more perimeter-based, active, very versatile kind of players. Nembhard is exactly like that, so that would be one thing that you could probably do. But for the most part, I honestly thought that Calvin Booth did a great job during the 2022 offseason specifically. What I would do differently at the deadline, which he not really screwed up, but the one thing that he did was when he traded for Reggie Jackson, it came at a cost of also giving him that next contract.
Yeah.
It's why they got him on the buyout market. That was a bad decision. That was one of those that if you could go back and do it over, they didn't need Reggie Jackson in the playoffs. They didn't need him for the next season. What they needed was an opportunity to go get somebody else who was better. and they didn't have that flexibility. So I would have traded Bones Highland to Minnesota, actually, for Jordan McLaughlin and 2 second-round picks. I would sign Cody Zeller on a buyout instead of Thomas Bryant. And rather than going to get Reggie Jackson, I would simply just sign Nickeil Alexander-Walker the next offseason for the 2023 taxpayer mid-level exception.
Well, I believe Nickeil was traded from the Jazz, if I remember correctly, to the Wolves. And so I think they maybe gave 1 second, I think, was the trade for Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
That was a part of the Russell Westbrook deal that sent him to Utah, I believe. And then they kind of realigned some different things. And with Minnesota getting in on the deal, Utah getting in on the deal, I believe they then sent Nickeil Alexander-Walker on to, unless I've got a different deal that I'm
traded 23 from the Jazz to the Wolves in a deal with the Lakers, it looks like.
Yeah. So like I would like, that's fine if that goes through. You don't even have to trade for him in that situation. You could sign him in free agency that next offseason. You saw him in the playoffs. You're like, hey, that guy's pretty good. He gave Jamal Murray some problems. So let's see if he could like actually add something to this Nuggets roster.
Up to this point, remember 23, that was the year after 22. So what I would have actually done, so I think the Bruce Brown KCP thing was perfect. Now I would have started and I would have stayed there. But to your point, that next year, I'm talking about easily would have made the offer to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, given where he was, and would have signed him, to your point. And I think that would have been a great replacement for Bruce Brown, because obviously Bruce, $22.5 million for the Pacers.
It's a perfect, you just swap them. You just basically say, hey, we've got more of a 3-and-D offering here with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, somebody who much more comfortable shooting from outside, but he would fit next to Jamal Murray, next to Michael Porter, next to Nikola Jokic extremely well.
Right. So definitely Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think another one was the Jeff Green trade. Not the Jeff Green trade, the draft pick trade the day of the NBA Finals. You remember this, the 2023 Finals?
Yeah. I would have just not done this.
Right.
Yeah, and then I would have drafted Andre Jackson Jr. with a mid-second round pick and just called it a day for that draft.
Right. And so that deal, was it the 2029? It was the 29th pick and the 32nd pick from the Pacers. They had traded the 2029 first to the OKC Thunder, correct?
Yes. So
I absolutely would not have touched that. Like, I just, would have left that alone. Because at that point, they used it on Peyton Watson that year, I believe. That's the
No. So you've got those confused. They used the 2027 first round pick. They traded along with JaMychal Green.
That's right.
For the 30th overall pick to get Peyton Watson in 22.
Exactly.
The very next year, they traded the 2029 first round pick to kind of shift around. They had an early second round pick, but then they got 3 like late first, early second round picks as a result of that, but they sacrificed future flexibility. And OKC capitalized on that because they're like, yeah, this is stupid. Let's bet against that future. And they got another draft pick from Denver.
Right. So that one would have been another one. But Ryan, I think, so if we're moving beyond that point, we both signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We don't make the draft day or the finals trade that involves Michael Green and all that stuff. We make sure, obviously, you resign Nickeil, obviously. But the next part of this, I would have been okay bringing Reggie Jackson back. If that was the handshake agreement, right? And you said, you're coming into the team, you're going to sign with the team, we're going to do this. But the 3 things that I wouldn't have done: player option, Reggie Jackson; player option, Dario Saric; player option, Russell Westbrook. And I think for me, all around, they have given way too much flexibility, I think, for the players, and for players that they are, 1, not sure are going to be rotation players for Denver, but then 2, also players that if this doesn't work out in a cap strong situation, you will be hampering the team long term by giving them those player options as well.
Oh, 100%. And it has been something that I think has enticed free agents to come to Denver, because they effectively, if it doesn't work out, if things are bad, then they at least get to fall back on, hey, we got a 2-year deal from Denver, basically, instead of a 1-year deal. But Denver, after winning a championship, they needed to be a little bit more cutthroat in these situations. They needed to not be the mom and pop. They needed to be the team that was a little bit more willing to play hardball with some of these guys. And that includes some of their own guys too. Like, I think that's a massive change that they needed to make. Even further than that, like, actually, you want to save it for the next segment. I have some takes on the 2024 offseason specifically that they screwed up.
All right. We'll talk about all that more on the other side here. Locked On Nuggets. Woo, boy. You know what time of the year it is. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchup already delivering. If you want in game time to make it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. Now, I was just looking on the app, and I'm telling you, Pacers, OKC, that Thunders is crazy. And zone deals were offering 60% off in great sections. I love that on the Game Time app, I can see my exact view before I buy, so no surprises. The app makes it ridiculously simple. 2 taps, literally 2 taps, and you're done. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit me 110% of the difference. Also, the NFL schedule release just dropped, and you better believe I'm already looking at my fall calendar and picking which games that I'm going to make. The Denver Broncos, I think, can win the AFC West. I got to be there. You can find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Y'all, we'll be right back. Locked On Nuggets. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Nuggets here with Ryan Blackburn and Swipe. But make sure y'all go ahead and give us a 5-star review on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. That way more and more people can listen to the great content being made here at Locked On Nuggets during the NBA summer. Also, make sure you like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube side. It doesn't take that long. Go ahead and just press that button. 15,000 subscribers is on the way, y'all. I think this is going to be a stupendous summer. I can't wait to get into it. So, Ryan Blackburn, we're talking about how we would rebuild the 2022 to 2025 Denver Nuggets, and somebody has accurately pointed out the Zeke Nnaji extension. Ryan, it is without saying that extension never would have happened.
Yeah, I would not have done that. That's pretty simply, Denver should not have done that. And like, you've seen it a couple of times. I just took a look at extensions when talking about Christian Braun and Peyton Watson's most recent extensions. You guys should check that out at Pickaxe and Roll, by the way. The actual deal for Zeke Nnaji, it's like 5.5% of the salary cap in 2024-25, which isn't that bad, but it was still something that clearly they didn't need to do. And Calvin just wanted a tradable contract, but ultimately he gave it to the wrong player because Zeke Nnaji is not a tradable contract anymore.
I mean, honestly, Peyton Watson, anywhere between $8 and $11 million would be way more movable than Zeke Nnaji.
Oh, well, undoubtedly. There's no question about that. I actually, you'll be crazy to hear about this. I projected Peyton Watson at $17 million per for his
based on the cap.
Yeah, like everything's going up. It starts in 2026, 27. But like, so I can understand why they did it back when they did it, but it was ridiculous. And Denver has never really taken guys to restricted free agency before, and they probably just needed to do that. There was nothing holding them from doing that, and maybe that's a lesson that they could learn with Christian Braun and Peyton Watson.
So I think some of this is, I do wonder, Ryan, that as we go into these contract negotiations, if that does kind of impact the way they're viewing this based on how previous contract negotiations have gone. I think Christian Braun is bona fide. I think he's going to get a deal, just a matter of how much. Peyton, I think, is interesting because I think they want to do Peyton. I think Peyton, obviously, I think he deserves it. But I also think this too. There's room, Ryan, for Peyton to explode this next year, and he's worth more on the other end, or they do sign him to $15, $17 million, and it's like he explodes. And now all of a sudden you got a young player that's, I mean, very, very reasonable contract for the next 4 years after this. So there's some real pathways for some success here. But you had some things that you wanted to talk about at the end of the first segment as well.
Yeah, so the 2024 offseason, I think Denver royally screwed up in a whole bunch of ways. It wasn't signing Russell Westbrook. Like, I thought that was actually a good save based off of the situation that they put themselves into. It wasn't the Aaron Gordon extension, which I thought was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The Jamal Murray extension, probably not the way that they should have handled it in retrospect.
What would you have done differently?
See, at the time, I was arguing that they just get it done, that they just make it happen. But now you start to look at that deal and you start to look at the flexibility, like how much is there. I probably would have traded Jamal. I probably would have traded Jamal that particular season. But hypothetically, let's say that's not a reasonable thing. Let's say they don't have any deals that make sense and you sign him to the same extension. Okay, not the worst thing in the world if he plays like a top 30 player in the playoffs. Like, I think that's a reasonable take. When you like, if he plays like a top 30 player consistently in the playoffs, that's a reasonable contract for him to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's debatable because
I think the hard thing about Jamal is like, because, Matt talks a lot about this, the NBA being more than just numbers and production, which obviously it is. But relationship-wise, it made complete sense why Jamal got a 4-year extension for 208. He just means that much to the org and, like, obviously to the 2-man game, the 3-man game with Aaron Gordon, the starting 5. And, we talk about you're not going to find a lot of 6'4" and a half guys that are that good at all the things he is, off the dribble, pick and roll, even just holding up defensively in a playoff setting. So just a lot of things that he does at a high level that you really need. But to your point, his floor, like in Game 7, like in, parts of the Thunder series, parts of the Clipper series, he has these really good games, 43 games in a game, 43 points in the game, 28 points in another game versus OKC, but then he can just kind of disappear at times. So, but I think not signing him would have been very difficult. Now, what I definitely think I would have signed him, but Zeke Naji doesn't get extended. But this last offseason, Ryan, when there was a very clear need for an NBA player, Dario Saric would never have touched the phone.
I'm going bigger than that.
Which part?
I'm going bigger. I think you just re-signed KCP.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think you bite the bullet. You do not let a player like that walk away.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about just needing an NBA player. They had one. They had a good one. Obviously, it hasn't worked out for him in Orlando, and obviously they're having some buyer's remorse over there when they've got like Paolo Banchero and Cole Anthony trying to create him some offense, and I get why. But Denver needed the perimeter defense. They needed somebody that they trusted, and just having him as an option, even if he goes to the bench eventually, like they needed that. And the fact that they didn't have it, I think, was really, really painful. I think you re-sign KCP, and I think you trade Michael Porter.
Well, yeah, obviously that comes down to that. At that point, Porter would have had 3 years left on his deal. So,
yeah, you got to attach some assets for sure. At least one first-round pick in order to get it done.
But I think that's where the Reggie Jackson trade comes in. Like you move Reggie Jackson's contract of $5 million with the forced trade and to basically have the young players you have to play, but then you give up 3 second-round picks in the process, and that obviously it kind of caps you out as well.
And also, if you haven't acquired Peyton Watson in a deal, then you have the 2027 first-round pick to play around with. If you haven't done the Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson deal, you have the 2029 pick to play around with. Let me
tell you how big draft is, especially for a GM that's a scout, Ryan. Let me tell you how important this stuff is, and everybody knows it, but I want to put it in the context of a career. Michael Malone, his Nuggets career is over. Calvin Booth, his Nuggets career is over, at least for now, both of them. You never know. Years later, Vance Joseph, he came back to the Nuggets, to the Broncos.
Would be
so
wild.
Who knows? Right? Who knows? But I want you to think about this, Ryan.
Yeah.
Calvin Booth makes that trade for the 27th first to get the 30th pick in the 2022 draft. If Calvin Booth uses that pick for Andrew Nembhard and not Peyton Watson, he looks like the genius of the Western Conference. Because if Andrew Nembhard was in place of Peyton Watson these last 2 years, Ryan, dare I say, they would have 6 starters again. And Andrew Nembhard would look phenomenal on this team. You want to talk about picking up somebody full court. You want to talk about navigating screens. You want to talk about a shooter. You want to talk about a secondary creator. You want to talk about a pull-up shooter. You want to talk about somebody that can defend and rim protect for a guard. Andrew Nembhard does all of those things at 6'4". Just imagine.
Tween, step back, hezzy, and SGA's absolute holy shit. Like, it would be crazy, man. Like, just getting something like that with the 30th overall pick, it would have been fantastic. And look, they've got Peyton Watson, so now they have to commit to him. And this is one thing that you can't let that go by the wayside. You have to continue to commit to him, or you have to trade him while the value is good in order to make it happen. But like, it's just when you don't hit on those picks, or it's the Strother, Pickett, Watson, or Strother, Pickett, Tyson debacle, I think, of a deal that we've now come to see it as. Like, it's just very difficult to
put it in, Ryan. Those moves. It's so small because, again, had it been, this is what I'm telling y'all how big this stuff is. Ryan, if they get in Nembhard instead of Peyton Watson, if they get Julian Strother and Toumani Camara, literally, like, all of a sudden, it's like the Nuggets are the deepest team in the West. But that's how small the margins are. I remember, Ryan, we talked about this, that if you're going to have this philosophy where, I remember I told you, then you have to move up in the draft to, as much as you can, guarantee you get a quality rotation player year 1, year 2. But they didn't do that. And so they took gambles on Hunter Tyson, who, for me, doesn't fit the athletic profile for what the Nuggets need. No. Jalen Pickett, who doesn't fit the athletic profile for what the Nuggets need.
No.
So it's just like they went against their own, like, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, KCP, and Peyton Watson. Those 4 athletes they brought, they had a great plan. And then they went away from it entirely. They just decided, you know what? Instead of doing this thing that works, we're going to try something new. It was wild. And so that's one thing. Of course, I think you could point to a variety of different things. I would still draft DaRon Holmes with the 2024 first round pick. That was fine. It unfortunately didn't work out because of the Achilles tear. But just don't telegraph it and give up 3 second-round picks in the process. Like, this isn't hard. This is not a difficult thing. And so all of these margin moves failed, every single one. And the fact that Denver has had this happen over and over and over again, like, there are so many different things that they could have been doing during this time. The last thing is that, like, as I mentioned, Michael Porter Jr., this is like, if you re-sign KCP, you have to find a way to break up that salary in some ways. I would have moved him to Golden State for Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody. Like, just a pretty simple deal. But you get a couple rotation guys. You get another. You keep KCP. You have Andrew Nembhard. You have all of these options that you can go to on a consistent basis. Like, hell, Toumani Camara, if you had drafted correctly back in 2023. Like, there's or 2024, I don't remember. There's so many different things that you could be doing differently and could have hit on the margins a little bit more, and they missed every time. Look, on the other side, we're going to talk about, are the Nuggets trapped down this path that they have placed themselves on? Also, we're going to talk a little about the NBA Finals. What are some thoughts that we have about what we're seeing from the Pacers and the Thunder? We're going to talk about all that and more here on Locked On Nuggets. There's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. If you are wanting to upgrade your patio this season, WayFair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours, comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. WayFair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space: conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tub, gazebos, and yes, even the perfect string lights to set the vibe. It's like giving your backyard that resort feel without the resort price tag. Now, I really love having outdoor chairs. I want to have something that's like a modern look, that's a comfortable feel, that really gives you the sense of home. And the delivery is free, fast, and totally hassle-free, even with larger items. Now, whether I'm hosting friends or just unwinding with a book, it feels like my own private retreat. So don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with WayFair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's WayFair.com. WayFair, every style, every home. We'll be right back for more here on Locked On Nuggets. We are back here for the final segment of Locked On Nuggets here with Ryan Blackburn talking about your Denver Nuggets. Ryan, let's get straight to this question. Do you believe the Denver Nuggets are trapped down the path they are currently on?
If they aren't willing to make any changes, then absolutely. Like that's the thing that we are really seeing here. The Nuggets have kind of gone down the path of least resistance each of the past couple of off seasons, and it seems like they're going to go down that path this time too. Like we've talked about, 2023, it was effectively, we're going to re-sign our guys if we can. If not, we're going to try to draft some guys. We're not going to try to do any of the hard work in terms of negotiating with free agents. We're just going to try to bring back the status quo. Screwed it up. 2024, they try to get a Band-Aid solution with Russell Westbrook. They identified Dario Saric as one of the only guys that was willing to sign for them on the deal that he got. And ultimately, other than that, they didn't really do much of anything from an addition standpoint or a change standpoint. They just brought back the entire core of what they had outside of KCP, outside of Bruce Brown the year before. Now this year, you're probably looking at the same thing. You're probably looking at just bringing back the same mix. And I've talked about this before. You're probably just bleeding talent. And that's kind of where, like, all of these guys that could have been helping you in a playoff series, they're all kind of leaving, or they are getting worse, or they are aging, or whatever it is. But Denver's missing out on opportunities to add to their team. They haven't really added to their team in either of the last two off seasons. If they make it three, then they're trapped. And what we talked about with the first round picks, you don't have enough flexibility in order to make a tangible change. So they've done this to themselves, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they're within the new CBA, the whole thing that Calvin preached was flexibility. And I think they self-impose non-flexibility. So
like, you're 100% right, because he's like, yes, flexibility is really important to us. What are we going to do? We're going to break both of our arms and tie up our legs and make sure that we're going to lay in the path of a train and decide, this is how we're going to run the team.
So I think that's what I'm saying, Ryan. Like, if flexibility is the goal, then what on your right now, I would not define the roster as flexible. I would not define the assets as flexible. No. So not only are they borderline second apron, but they're also inflexible in the assets they have, because to force a solution to a problem that really wasn't there. Remember, they forced themselves to play the young guys by offloading with assets veterans, or not re-signing veterans that you had bird rights to. So you didn't utilize the pathways for at least maintaining in front of you. And then to get better, you went away from your organizational philosophy that I think, like, by getting athletes that can kind of help you do the things that you need. Because the issue is that Denver, I'm watching this OKC series and I'm watching the Pacers series. Ryan, if Denver, I think, had an argument that they're the best team in the league if they just have one more player. Like, it's literally, y'all, the margins are that small that even with Porter being injured, now Aaron Gordon going down was too much. They could have beat OKC with just one more player. And I'm saying that, like, then you get to the Wolves, and look, I think the Wolves, like, granted, like, Jamal Murray was out 2 of those games. Like, he got hurt. They should have won the one with Russ fouled Nikhil. I just, whatever. Then Jamal Murray got shouldered in the head by Julius Randle. They were up like 10 or whatever at that point.
Jokic capable of putting up 60, 10, and 10 in that game. Like, right. They would have found some ways to win. I still probably think they struggle, but if you have another guy, if you have some shooting, if you have some defense, then you probably get through it. Right.
And this new look zone defense they put up, you know what I mean? Like, so a lot of this is just, Ryan, I really hope they're watching the Pacers series and just like, no, we just need more guys. Like, we have to have another person and another 2 players. Look, I noted this on Players' Choice today. Nembhard starts off on SGA. But after Nembhard, when he needs a rest, TJ McConnell takes an opportunity. Benny Mathurin takes an opportunity. And then even Ben Shepherd, their 11th man, gets an opportunity to contribute. They're getting minutes out of Thomas Bryant. Obi Toppin's having really good minutes. That's not including Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. That's not including Miles Turner. And that's not including their best player, and Tyrese Halliburton. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, this is the NBA now. You have to have layers that you can attack from. And you know who I feel very good for going forward in the future, whether or not they keep their best player? It's the Philadelphia 76ers. But let me tell you why. Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes, probably either soon to be VJ Edgecombe or Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey, depending on how the draft falls. So they're going to have 4 young dynamic players at the guard spot to build around. And this is with they keep Embiid or not. I'm saying even if they trade Embiid, they're still building for a future that's reflective of the NBA we're in, which is ball handling, dynamic attacking players. And that way, when your best player doesn't have a goal or is having issues with a defense, you can give the ball to Nembhard. You can give the ball to Benny. Benny off the bench for the Pacers yesterday, 25 points, bucket. And then you get TJ McConnell closing out the game because he's making every play possible. 10 points, 5 steals, 5 assists.
Shout out Facu.
Right. He wishes. So, but again, Ryan, man, I think it's a philosophical change, but I don't know if the Nuggets, if they're in the place to realize that they need to make some of those adjustments.
Oh, yeah, there's no way. Like, unless you can find a team that takes on Michael Porter and you add multiple rotation players, then it's just not going to happen. Like, Denver doesn't have the ability, the flexibility to add that number of rotation players. Now, what they do have is the camaraderie, the chemistry of a team that's already won a championship, and you can at least talk yourself into, okay, if you've got 4 or 5 of the guys, Jokic, Murray, Porter, Gordon, Brown,
right?
If you've got those 5, and then add just about as much as you possibly can around them, you have to hit on a minimum deal. You have to hit on a taxpayer mid-level. If you make a trade on the fringes, you have to make sure that player is adding to your team and not subtracting. Denver, like, if you get a little bit of development from Peyton Watson or Julian Strawther, then like that would really help off the bench. So there are ways I think that you can get better or get good enough that you can compete with these teams.
Yeah.
But it's just hard to foresee all of that happening. And Denver's just put themselves into such a position. You have to have 100% hit rate, 100% hit rate right now, or else you are not going to win a title.
Let me know what you think in the comment section. What do you think the Denver Nuggets should have done differently from 2022 to now? How would you have rebuilt the team? Also, do you think the Nuggets are stuck down this path? And what are you learning from the Pacers Thunder series? And who do you think wins the series? I think, Ryan, the Pacers winning the championship would be the best NBA story we've had in the last 25 years. That's Ryan. I'm Swiper. This is Locked On Nuggets. See you on the other side.
Pacers.